Hello, welcome to our third presentation. My name is Jared Lassiter, and I picked the chapter that went over a contrast in delivery. It's all about how we're going to give a different delivery methods when we're giving our presentations, and how the contrast is what makes them stand out from all the rest. So, we in this presentation specifically are going to cover some major points in the chapter. These points are going to include compassion as a resource for you in your presentations, as well as finding your inner hero, how to manipulate your audience. And when I say manipulate, I mean how to get them to not be hostile, and if they are, how to get them to not be hostile towards you, the speaker. Also, learning through imitation. And last but not least, we're going to go over inner conflicts, how you yourself are holding yourself back as a presenter. So, be passionate with your presentations. What does this mean? This means that only if you are passionate about what you are presenting about will it have an impact on the people listening. So, I watched a very, very, very good presentation over fungi on TED Talk for our discussion post at the beginning of this class. The guy was super passionate about fungi, and you could tell it, and so everybody else was super passionate about it. So if you can't find something you're super passionate about, you may not be the best presenter, and that's okay. You're not always going to be the best presenter on every subject. But that also means don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone. Maybe research it. You might find out that it's one of your favorite things in the world, and you'll be a huge star in that presentation. Play on people's emotions and think like an actor. So, you read your audience and try to get them to help you. Today's public speakers are professional actors. Old-timey ones you think about from the 20th century, Hellfire and Brimstone, they were basically actors. They had a script, they read from it. Speakers today don't do that. Speakers today are better when they talk about something they're passionate about, going back what we just talked about in the last slide. When you're passionate about it, when you're engaged, and you actually want to talk about it, that's the best time for you to be a public speaker. Accept and admit their imperfections. Today's speakers will, of course, acknowledge that they are imperfect, like me myself. Sometimes I stutter, sometimes I don't. I'm overcoming it, but I'm telling you, that gives us a sort of connection between me, the speaker, and you, the audience. So, passion versus perfection. What's the difference? Because remember how we talk about actors of old versus actors today when it comes to public speaking? When you read from a list and it's already predisposed to what you're going to say, that's perfection. Whereas when you're going for passion, sometimes it's kind of free-flowing. There's not a set script. You can deviate from what is going to and not be said. Again, you have to love what you're presenting about. Find something you love, present about it. If it's for your company, and you get chosen to go to present and go forth and present your company to a new supplier, a new client, find an aspect of the company that you're passionate about and present that to them. They'll see that, they'll connect to it, and it will help your chances of making whatever connections you need to sell your product, sell your services, sell your security, etc. Admit to yourself that you aren't the best public speaker. Once you admit this, you can overcome whatever predisposed notions you have in your mind of what public speaking is. Once we understand that we're not perfect, we don't hold ourselves to this high standard. And that's usually what gets people to trip up, is holding themselves to an impossible standard of public speaking. Now, the last point I would like to make about being passionate in your speaking is in this chapter, there's a small story about a yoga who is also a bodybuilder. When you think of a bodybuilder, you don't think somebody that's enlightened. That's usually what you think about yoga. Try to have both. Be both aspects. Be passionate and try to be perfect. You won't get both, but the nice blend of both of them is what's going to make you excel. So, next point is don't avoid confrontation. When you're giving a public speech or any sort of presentation, you're going to have moments where you're gonna make somebody in the audience mad. It's just gonna happen. If you give your presentation to a room of 30 people, one of them isn't gonna like what you're saying. So we need to discuss on how we can overcome this. Within the first 10 minutes of presentation, you should be able to provoke somebody. When you're giving your presentation, somebody's not going to agree with it, always. So if you're not provoking somebody within the first 10 minutes, it's probably not a good presentation. An insider perspective is also better than an outsider. If you speak in the terms of we instead of you, it helps. For example, if you come to give a presentation in a security firm about how they need to change their tactics because they are in trouble of getting a lawsuit, it sounds like you're just coming at them and attacking them. But if you say, we need to do this because this could hurt us, it makes it sound like you're part of the team and they're more likely to be persuaded by what you're saying. Now, we're going to move on to how to handle these discussions when we come into confrontations. First, all you need to do to start a confrontation is stop censoring yourself. Don't be afraid to start a discussion that is going to start an argument. That's the whole point. When you sit down and you're thinking about who you're going to do this presentation for, don't make a list of things to avoid. Just give the presentation freely. Because by avoiding a subject, you're avoiding a confrontation, and that could be a moment to try to persuade them to your side. Also, get angry with it. That doesn't mean go up and punch somebody in the face in the front row. What that means is try to emulate like a hellfire and brimstone preacher, because they were effective in what they did. And they were effective for a reason, and that's because they were angry, up in your face, told you what to do, and 9 times out of 10 it worked, at least for that generation. When you're talking or making discourse with people, avoid experts on the subject for one reason and one reason only. They're going to try to start a monologue with you. What I mean by that is going to be a two-way discussion between only you two people. You don't want that because they're going to start bringing in jargon, specific examples that most of the audience isn't going to know. That's bad because then you're going to lose the rest of the audience by focusing on one person. Try to deflect it back on them. Ask them, is this really something you think the rest of the audience is going to understand? And most of the times it won't. But if you can, get the opportunity to move it and try to explain some of it if you think it will benefit the rest of the audience to what you're presenting them. So, we're going to go over humor now. Humor is an angry bull. Going back to the anger. Get angry, get up in their face. But as a bull, angry in the china shop, you're going to make a couple broken dishes. That's okay. That's what we want. Humor is best when it's angry. Look at the best comedians you think of. They're a little angry when they give their best performances. Not angry as in I'm going to go out and beat somebody up. Angry as in they're passionate. You can see them red in the face. They're talking a lot. Getting short of breath. All these are what lead them to be good comedians. You can't play nice all the time, and they use exaggeration and context shifts. That goes back to being angry like a bull. They exaggerate, they get angry. They do their little context shifts, they get angry. It's a great way to engage your audience when you use humor. So, offend the audience. Offend the audience. Don't say things that everyone will agree with. If you say things that everybody agrees with, there's no point in having the discussion in the first place. There's no point in you presenting. Except that someone in the audience is going to disagree with you. Somebody always will. And that's what we want. Remember, within the first 10 minutes, you want to provoke somebody. 30 people in the audience, somebody's going to disagree with you. Accept the fact, overcome it. So, let's get to that hostile audience member. You're giving this great presentation, there's somebody in the audience, he comes up and he's like, fuck you, man. Why is that a problem? Because he's diverting the attention from what you were trying to do. So we need to be able to reel them in, get it under control, and keep our presentation going. Because it looks very unprofessional when you just stop to deal with one angry person. So ask the audience at the very beginning to raise their hands if they have questions. That way they understand that they can't just blurt out whatever they want. And that should reduce the amount of people that are going to cause hostile conflicts. Not controversial, hostile. And then, if that doesn't work, get to the root of the problem. Always try to ask them, why are you angry? Why are you hostile towards me? Where is this coming from? And a lot of times, you can figure out that they're not angry at you, they're angry at what you're presenting it. And to go back on the raising the hands part, if you acknowledge them when they raise their hands and come back to them and go to the next slide, a lot of times you'll find that the answer's on the next slide. Such as learning from others. Monkey see, monkey do. We've all heard that old saying. So, imitation is the best form of learning. You've always heard the best way to get better at chess is to play somebody better than you and lose. Keep doing it, watch others, build off others. Winston Churchill wasn't a great speaker because he was born one. He was a good one because he learned from the people before him. Discover who you are as a speaker without cloning the person you're trying to build off of. If I imitate Steve Jobs and I come in with Steve Jobs glasses and the same haircut and suit and tie or whatever he wore, you're going to think I'm Steve Jobs. I'm not Steve Jobs. So, without becoming that person, find out who you are based off of it. Because once you start imitating them, you might find things that they do that you don't like, or you do. And you can build off of them, go into little niches, take a little bit of Winston Churchill, take a little of Steve Jobs, take a FDR, mix it all together, and you have you. So, also, choose the right person to build off of. There are great speakers out there that are horrible people. Mussolini, Hitler, great at what they did when they gave speeches. Horrible people. So choose the right person to build off of. Otherwise, you're going to get wrong connotations for your rhetoric. So let's put this all together. Be passionate. Love what you're doing, but don't be fake about it, and people know when you're being fake about it. Lead the discussion. Don't be driven by the discussion. You need to be in the reins the entire time, not the audience. They need to be listening to you. Controversy helps lead a narrative. Also helps lead the conversation. Narrative, conversation, same word. You want to lead it, they want to lead it, but you need to be in control. Build off of others to find your own style. We just talked about that. Figure out who works for you. Pick the right person, don't pick the wrong one. Build off of them, but don't become them. And overcome yourself most of all. Because like I said, once we build off of these people, you might have these expectations that they had. You are who you are. Don't fight yourself. Don't hold yourself to higher standards than you absolutely have to. And once you do all this, you'll be a great public speaker because you'll be able to contrast your every presentation